Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rails to Trails Conservancy's webinar today, Celebrate Trails Day, an overview of the celebration and ways to engage. For those of you who have attended one of our webinars before, welcome and thank you for coming back. And for those of you who are new, welcome and thanks for joining us for the first time. My name is Suzanne Mattias, and I'm Rails to Trails Conservancy's social media and engagement strategist, and I'm joined by RTC's Vice President of Communications today, Brandy Horton. We are we are delighted to dig into today's topic, but before we get started, we want to go over a little housekeeping. As you may have already noticed, attendees have been automatically muted as they join to keep background noise at a minimum. You will not be able to speak during today's webinar. We'll be keeping an eye out for any tech issues that may emerge on our end, but we will be unable to help with individual tech issues. If you experience any such problems, your best course of action is to contact Zoom's free customer support directly or view a selection of help topics at the link shown on the screen. I encourage you to copy those down now before we move on from this slide. The number to reach is also there for listening in. If for whatever reason you lose the webinar connection, please re-click your login to rejoin. You will also be able to catch this later through a recording. We'll make it available on our Rails Trails Conservancy Celebrate Trails Day website, so don't worry. We will also save time for questions at the end. If you have any questions about our resources or any of the content you hear about during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the question box on the right-hand side of your screen at any time. Finally, after today's webinar, you will receive a follow-up email containing a quick survey, a link to sign up for occasional emails from us, and a recording of today's webinar there as well. So with all the housekeeping taken care of, I'm excited to turn it over to Brandy to talk about Rails Trails Conservancy and Celebrate Trails Day.
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you to everyone on the line who is with us today. I know that we have lots of long-term friends with us, but I think we have some new people as well. So we thought we would start with just a little bit about who we are and what we do and why this day is so special and so important to the mission of the organization. Rails to Trails Conservancy is the nation's largest trails, walking, and biking advocacy organization. So everything we do really rolls back to how can we build a nation that's connected by trails? How can we reimagine public spaces? How can we make it safer and easier, really, for everyone to walk, bike, and be active outdoors? Our strategy, and next slide, Eduardo, our strategy is rooted in four big pillars. So when we're thinking about what does it take to really create that national system of trail networks, what does it take to really bring trails into people's communities so that trails connect everyone everywhere? It really requires changes in our infrastructure, changes in how we invest public and private dollars in infrastructure, a focus, an intentional and deep focus on equity to make sure that this infrastructure is reaching people where they live and reaching communities that have been long separated from the outdoors or from access to safe walking and biking. And it requires participation, because if we build trail networks and trail systems across the country and we invest in them and we make it so that people can get there and no one's doing it, well, then we haven't done our job the best that we can do it. And Celebrate Trails Day is really rooted in all of these aspects, but it is the opportunity to create massive participation in a single moment across the country. Next slide, please. And when we talk about our why, and when we talk about why this mission matters so much to so many regions of the country, so many towns and cities across the country, it's really because of the connections that trails inspire. Those are physical connections, those are metaphorical connections, those are relationships that we build across, ideological lines, across town lines, across the street. I often talk about trails as an invitation to the outdoors. It's also an invitation to your community. I see personally, when I'm out on my trails, all sorts of neighbors and friends that I know that I wouldn't see anywhere else. And when we think about that, there's this notion of, what do trails make possible? And one of the things that trails make possible is joy. Joy is such an important part of our lives. It's something that we all seek out in different ways. And when you're on the trail, joy happens. It happens for us. It happens for our neighbors. It also creates a chance for self-care. It creates a chance to connect into nature that's in your backyards, building a different appreciation for that in the places where we live. What's incredible is that at this moment in time, there's more than 42,000 miles of multi-use trails across the country, and those trails are being leveraged to develop more than 150 trail networks. So in every single state, there are trails, there are rail trails, there are multi-use trails, and in every single state right now, there are people working together to try to create trail networks. And when we think about, what is the impact, what is the reach of that? More than 50% of Americans live in a county where a trail network is being developed. So over the course of time, trails, multi-use trails, and trail networks have really evolved to become such a ubiquitous part of American life. But sometimes we take those kinds of things for granted, and we don't know where they came from, and we don't know why they're there, and we don't know how to get more of them or any of that. And Celebrate Trails Day is really about shining a light on all of those things. Next slide, please. When we talk to people across the country about, why do trails matter? Why do you want to get involved in this work? Why are you out on the trail today? It is incredible how far-reaching and widespread the understanding that trails are essential really is. This is a survey that RTC did at the national level, results from a survey from a few years ago. And what we learned is that almost everyone, 90% of people say that it is important that everyone have access to trails. So beyond, I want to have access to a trail, really understanding that there's this opportunity and this importance of making that available to everyone else. Almost 90% of people, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, say that tax dollars should be spent on maintaining and improving trails. And similar numbers talk about the importance of connecting trails. So there's just huge bipartisan support for this idea of creating this infrastructure that's good for our economies, it's good for our quality of life and our well-being, it's good for our communities, and really is what it takes for communities to thrive. And 61% of people say that they would like to spend more time on the trail. And we think Celebrate Trails Day is a wonderful opportunity to start to bring that to reality for folks in different parts of the country. Next slide, please. Another just kind of bringing it full, right into the full spotlight of the impact that trails are bringing to people in their lives. Again, these huge numbers, almost 90% of people agree that trails encourage people to be more physically active. I'm most inspired, that's kind of an obvious outcome of trails. I am personally most inspired by these last two data points about economic development and transportation. These are areas where working in this space, we know very well how trails are part of driving economies and building new economic opportunity in places. And similarly for transportation and creating transportation choice and helping with mobility. But to hear kind of the average American say that, yes, this in fact is something that they understand as the value and why this infrastructure is essential is so important. And we're sharing that because I think it's part of the story of why days like Celebrate Trails Day matter, how you can leverage these days and these moments in your community. Next slide, please. I also want to reinforce as we kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what Celebrate Trails Day is and how we do it and how people can get involved, that beyond the impact that trails are delivering in places and the strategy at the national level of participation being key to how we build more support, how we build more trails ultimately, there's also academic and public health research on why programming matters. So the Community Preventive Services Task Force, this is at the federal level in alignment with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They look at all of the guidance around what we should be doing to be healthy, what the different guidelines are around nutrition and physical activity, and they provide recommendations for how places and institutions can actually help people fulfill those goals. And in the Healthy People Healthy Nation plan, the CDC's plan to get more Americans physically active, there's a lot of guidance and there's a lot of information about, we need to make it easier for people to bike and walk as part of their everyday life. Having the infrastructure to do that matters so much. And in some of the research and analysis, the Community Preventive Services Task Force found that the infrastructure interventions are really important, right? We can't do any of this if we don't have the places to do it, but they really aren't maximized until there's the additional intervention of programming, activities, things for people to do, because to get people to kind of change their behavior, to get people to decide they want to go out on the trail. They want to make this something that's, part of their fitness routine, or they want to make this part of their everyday life. Sometimes they need an invitation to do that. Sometimes they need a reason to do that. And that's something that we think Celebrate Trails Day is really uniquely suited to do. Next slide, please. So drum roll, I guess. It's probably in all the materials, Suzanne. But Celebrate Trails Day this year, the big national moment for America's trails, is on April 26th. So the fourth Saturday of April every year. It is on April 26th. And next slide. It is truly more than a day outside. When this started in 2013, it was really just a concept for how can we get people kind of rally the troops and get people excited about trails in a moment and kind of create some synergy between partners at different levels. Over the past, it'll be 12 years now, the growth has just been exponential. And part of that has come from the fact that it really is more than just a day out on the trail. It is something that can be leveraged for so many different purposes. And we see that happen with our partners all across the country. We often have participation happening in all of the states, which is great because we know there are trails and trail networks in all of the states. But what we're really seeing is that it is a day for joy in some places. It is a day for joy and impact. It is a day in some places that's really focused on the impact, and it's focused on, something that's a desperate need in the community, whether that's a cleanup or some direct advocacy, all sorts of ways that this takes shape. It is really an opportunity to build support for these spaces, to build awareness, to build support, to build that participation, because we all know in order to reach our goals, we need people involved in this work. And so it is a day to invite folks outside to have a whole lot of fun, centering it on joy, but really educating about what's happening, what's needed, what's to come. Huge opportunity Suzanne's going to talk about for advocacy, whether that's at the local or the state level, or even plugging into our priorities at the national level. And there's, I think, some real power in being part of a movement on that day with hundreds of events taking place all across the country, tens of thousands of people engaging. And with that, Suzanne, I'm going to pass it back to you to share a little bit about what we've seen happen.
All right. Thank you so much, Brandy. That was great. Now that Brandy has shared a little bit more about the why we're doing this, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the 2025 celebration, its impact, or the impact of Celebrate Trails Day, ways to get involved, and what we do, Trails Conservancy does, to try to make it as easy as possible for as many people and partners as possible to participate. So the impact, it's a day, Celebrate Trails Day, as Brandy mentioned, is a day of joy, but also a big impact. It's more than a day outside. Last year, in just one day, again, this is one day, there was an amazing amount of people taking part and just really getting to drink in the benefits of trails, but also being able to witness firsthand what those benefits are. Last year, we had more than 20,000 people participate in more than 240 celebrations across the country, hosted by 306 partners, organizations, groups like yours, in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. So it was a really exciting year for us. Brandy mentioned it's been around since 2013, and each year we're trying to grow the celebration more and more and bring more people out to discover and engage with their local trails. Some of those benefits I mentioned that people were able to experience firsthand would be through those active minutes outside. So what is that? That could be somebody taking a walk, somebody taking a bike ride, somebody doing like a jazz skate combination, what have you. It's being active. And what's so powerful about that, collectively, that's amazing. But on the individual level, on average, 102 active minutes per person. For a week, the CDC recommends 150 minutes of moderate to intense physical activity. So that's more than 2/3 of the recommendation, just in one day. Can you imagine the impact of that if people spent more time on their trails in day-to-day life? It'd be amazing. And then also we found out that folks were able to and would be interested in swapping car trips, taking the trail more for those everyday visits to your friends or visits to the store, just exploring those communities. So it was a really powerful day where we got to see the impact of just again, one day can do. And if we can harness that and continue that energy by celebrating trails on this day and going forward, just imagine the possibilities. Next slide, please. speaking of imagining those possibilities, the opportunities. So in addition to what Brandy shared, kind of why we're inviting you, asking as many partners and people as possible to participate. Again, those connections that Brandy mentioned with the trails themselves, with people in their communities, there's just so much there. And also, you know, we rely on partner organizations all across the country. That's the only way that this national celebration can be what it is, to elevate trails in that national moment. We rely on groups, whether you're a trail manager, you're a bicycling group, you're a local business along the trail. We really invite anybody to be a part of this celebration and to make it possible. So it gives you, as these partners, an opportunity to connect with people too in your community. So it's a really great way for them not only to experience their trails and get to know their trails, but also the folks behind them. Infusing advocacy, Brandy already hinted at this a little bit. So Celebrate Trails Day, it's a really fun day out on the trail. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that, including decision makers, elected leaders? It's a really great opportunity for them to connect with their constituents in a very positive atmosphere, while also being able to experience those trails and their impact and value. So we'll talk a little bit more about how you can bring advocacy into your celebrations. Highlighting infrastructure. A lot of folks understand that getting out on the trail is wonderful. By being able to celebrate it in this fashion nationally, it allows them to witness, again, that local level, regional level, and national level of how these trails help connect places, communities across the country, and just what that can do at every level of existence, and including those connections that can be made, whether there's a gap there or a gap that was filled. It's just exciting for folks to be able to see these places activated and what can be unlocked when they further connect and expand. Showcasing stories. So I think everybody here probably has some type of story from along the trail. I know I have a ton because I have a dog and we love to do that sort of thing. And Celebrate Trails Day is about celebrating that too. It celebrates those individual experiences, what people get to do when they're on trails, how trails make them feel. And we lift all of that up too in this national moment, again, to really paint that picture of the value of these spaces in people's everyday lives. And then amplifying, of course, I've mentioned it several times, when you have something, a national moment powered by local participation, you really do amplify everything and lift it all up, and just how powerful these spaces are, this active transportation infrastructure and activating these spaces is with programming. And next slide, please. So the celebration, here are some of the frequently asked questions that we get about it, really what you can do, how to get involved. We've already covered when is it celebrated. Again, that's that fourth Saturday of April, April 26th this year. Just add it to your calendar as a recurring appointment. It'll always be there. How it's celebrated, talk about that in a moment. How can my organization get involved? What resources are available? And then the timeline too. And we go to the next slide, please. How you can get involved. Again, I mentioned Celebrate Trails Day. We work with partners, we team up with partners all across the country, and that really covers any type of organization who is engaged with the trail. Again, from trail manager to parks departments to bicycling groups, birding groups, anybody really who uses these spaces or wants to lift them up. And we encourage those partners to promote trail use, and that can take part in many different ways, either through promoting those self-directed trail outings. What is self-directed trail outings? We'll go over a list in a moment, but it's really anything that it gets folks out on the trail. Whether that's cheerleading them, hey, get out on the day, our region has amazing trails, discover one near you, or hey, we have some new interpretive signage, come check it out, experience the trail, get out there, bring a friend, bring your dog, bring your family. And then group events. A lot of you probably already have dabbled in this or regularly do this. Group events such as, group bike rides, or again, I mentioned birding walks, community festivals. Those group events, that type of programming, as we saw through that quote from the CDC, it brings people to these spaces. It makes them feel invited. It makes them feel welcomed. It gives them something fun to do, and just to really take away that positive experience with getting out in these places. So those group events are a really fun way to just welcome your community in such an obvious way, like, hey, we really want you to be out here, join us. And that's what Celebrate Trails Day is all about, getting people on the trail, making them feel welcome. And by having all of these outings on the trail, that's what really makes the celebration big and at that national scale. Next slide, please. Okay, some ways to engage as a partner. There are several different ways. We know that you all have a ton of things that you're working on. So again, we want to try to make it as easy as possible to bring the celebration to you, to your communities, in whatever way works best. So partnering, simply letting us know that you are interested in partnering with us, getting involved, bringing the celebration to wherever you are is huge. We have a sign up, essentially a list on our Celebrate Trails Day website, which is railstotrails.org/celebrate trails. You can sign up there. That allows you to make sure you get any updates about the celebration. We send you resources. We send you opportunities to request materials, all of that. So simply partnering with us, just again, it brings that visibility. It brings the celebration to your community. Promoting, I've already mentioned, getting folks, encouraging them to get out on the trail. Celebrate Trails Day, we try to make it as easy as possible to do so. We have a bunch of, we'll get into this momentarily, but we resources to help lift up the day, make it so you can simply hit share on something, maybe tweak it a little bit to customize to best fit your audience, but just really encouraging folks to participate in this day out on the trail. And then planning, I've already mentioned that, programming, right? Organizing something that takes place on your trail that makes your community feel invited to get outside and join you in celebrating these spaces. And then participate, even if you cannot organize an event, which we understand, you can simply get out there, take some photos of your trail, what have you, and just share that, hey, these spaces are here. We're celebrating them on the day by just highlighting our local trails and what's happening. And of course, you can do a combination of all of these things. We love that, that definitely helps lift up the celebration even more. Next slide, please. So the benefits of trail programming, we've already touched on this a little bit, but through, whether it's a cleanup or any other type of activity that you're planning on your trail, there are so many benefits there. Not only are you getting people to experience these spaces, but you're allowing them to really witness that value of the trail, those opportunities for health. If you're going to a trailside business, those economic opportunities, or even, the ones that come with renting a bike along the trail, that sort of thing, getting to see how your trails are connecting your community, how people can use them to get from point A to point B. So it really provides them that opportunity just to get out there and try it for themselves, especially if they haven't tried it themselves in the past. See how they can connect with nature. Some folks, whether it's forest bathing or they just need a quiet moment to themselves, it allows them to see just how impactful these spaces are in their communities. Signaling that the trail is welcoming and well cared for. If you wouldn't mind just going back, thank you. Letting them know, that the space is for them and that there are groups here that are activating it and welcoming people to join them out there. And it can help advance social equity goals, but it's also it's fun. It's engaging your community, and then can raise awareness and support. We've already touched on advocacy just a little bit, and we'll get into more of that. But, it's a great way to build a base of volunteers. Somebody might fall in love with your trail for the first time or even more, and they say, I want to be a part of the maintenance crew out here every week. If it's 20 degrees outside like it is here in Washington, D.C., or it's, warm and sunny, or supporters too, right? If you have fundraising events for your trail, it's a great way for people to just, again, see that these spaces are there, feel invited, and want to be a part of that even more, to make those connections to the trail, but also to you. Next slide, please. Infusing advocacy. So again, Celebrate Trails Day really presents a fantastic opportunity to invite everybody in your community out to the trail, including those elected officials, those decision makers, those community leaders. It allows them to be surrounded by the constituents, the people who, they're serving, while also getting to celebrate with them, right? It's just a great opportunity to connect with people in so many ways for them, and for you to connect with these decision makers. It's an opportunity for you to invite them out to say, like, hey, this is what we're doing here. And it's a great way to help, secure support or just foster good feeling later down the line. Or, if you have a project coming up, it's just a really great way to engage decision makers and make them feel welcome and interested in the projects that you're working on. So some of the things that we are offering, those resources I mentioned, we have a whole one pager on inviting decision makers, some tips there, and also thanks to the recommendations from our partners, and we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. But we also now have a proclamation template, which is great. It's another opportunity to kind of make this day something that delivers even more impact to
And
you
Suzanne,
and to the
someone
trail.
just
Oh, yes.
asked about proclamations in the Q&A, and I
Oh,
told them it would be in the toolkit and coming
yes.
soon.
Yes. Oh, I love that mind reader. Yes, so we do have those resources. And again, if you have questions or thoughts, please let us know. We, again, want to make this celebration as impactful and as easy for you to participate as possible. And a couple, of tips to now it's January, which is hard to believe, but it's already January. We know that folks' calendars fill up fast, so you can start that outreach sooner and then continue to follow up too. It's a great way to just make sure things are on the calendar. I know sometimes proclamations, or if there's any types of types of request forms to get your decision makers there, you might need to do it in advance. So now is a really great time to start planning for that. And you can also infuse advocacy by having engagement opportunities, things to do at your events, such as sending letters to decision makers, whether it's like a postcard that folks are signing, action alerts that you're encouraging them to do on paper, or bringing an iPad that links to your action alert, or maybe you're seeking community feedback about your trail, future projects there. It's a really great opportunity, again, to really infuse what you're doing this fun, joyous day with also that impact, that advocacy for your projects. Next slide, please. Okay, some event and programming ideas. Again, I know a lot of you probably already have some great event and programming that you're working on, but we always like to share some inspiration from previous years. So those self-directed, again, kind of those self-designed adventures, ones that you might be promoting or using to promote people to get out on the trails. So really gamifying anything, scavenger hunts, bingo, I Spy, geocaching. That's all, gamified fun that people can do on their own, with just a little bit of extra support or guidance. I know RTC, we have a scavenger hunt kind of template too that we make available. Those self-guided walks, I mentioned interpretive signage, but if you have anything along your trail where people can kind of run through it themselves, further connect with your trail, learn more about it, that's a great way to do it. Runs or rides, and it's simply get out there and have their own kind of self-directed adventures. Art history walks, we've seen a lot of really neat art projects along trails, or the literacy trails, where you essentially read a book throughout the whole experience through signage. I've already mentioned geocaching, letterboxing, gamified experiences, photo safari. There's so many creative ways that people can get out and experience the trails. And we've seen so many partners just really, again, bring the creativity to their events. So some of those group activities include, I've mentioned cleanups, maintenance days. We know that spring is a really great time to have that volunteer base to help with any cleaning up or maintenance that needs to happen along the trail. Hikes, walks, rides, runs, fun runs, 5Ks, races, yoga, meditation. It's really endless, gathering people together for a shared activity. Biodiversity counts, you do bio blitzes, guided nature walks, birding, a lot of that. I mentioned festivals earlier, community festivals, sometimes inviting local businesses like the local bakery to be a part of the day. Just really, again, showing that trails connect communities and that helps them thrive. And those businesses, those trailside businesses, are a part of that experience and allowing people to have the opportunity to see what their trails to connect to. Guided culture history tours, another great opportunity if that experience can be provided through your trail. And then educational opportunities too, whether it's, like how to camp or how to be a great steward, bike repair. We've seen a lot of that too for Celebrate Trails Day. So really, there are so many ways that you can do programming for Celebrate Trails Day. You don't need to reinvent the wheel either. If you're doing something, if you're doing regular cleanups, align it with Celebrate Trails Day to, again, amplify that impact. Okay, next slide, please. This is always my favorite slide for these presentations. And this is just a very small snapshot of what the celebration looked like in last year alone. You can see some group rides, I think that's a llama. I'm not totally sure, but just that was at a farmer's market along the trail. There's opportunities to connect along the trail with these different ways to use that space. Horseback riding. We've got a community festival here, Bike Fix-It Station. There's just so many ways, and it all really, again, helps share that story, all those different unique stories of why these trails are loved and why they're important. Next slide, please. So a couple of tips. I've already mentioned a little bit here, but event planning, it can, depending on the scale of your event, it can be snap easy or it can be more of a process. So we just like to encourage folks, especially if this is your first time planning event, to always make sure if you need to secure any permits or reservations, if you're renting some type of space on the trail, a covered pavilion, that sort of thing, just make sure you're checking in with the managers, or maybe it's the Park Service, whoever really it is behind the trail, and any coverage you might need for the event, like event insurance, that sort of thing. Come prepared, first aid, we know that boo-boos happen. Hopefully nothing will at your events, but just being prepared is always great. And then inclement weather, April, you never know what you're going to get depending on where you are, or it's hard to predict sometimes. I know here in DC, we've had snow, we've had rain, we've had beautiful sunny days. So making sure you have an inclement weather plan. And then, think about partnering with other community members. I've already mentioned local businesses, but are there other community organizations or groups that you think would also really add to the day? Again, the ones that might already have some type of planning or activations along the trail coming together to celebrate the trail as a whole. Great idea or great way to connect with other partners. Consider equity, access, comfort when you're planning. RTC, we give preference to free Celebrate Trails Day events because we really want them to be as welcoming to as many people as possible. So consider that location, is it accessible? Making sure that information is shared before. Are you going to need restrooms, opportunities to rest, depending on your activity? So just, again, thinking about your community, how you can make them all feel comfortable and welcome these activations and these program activities. And then getting the word out early and often. It really does help when you can share the word out in advance. It gets people to put it on their calendars, and if they keep seeing it, then they're reminded to make sure that they go and have a great day with you all. And as I mentioned, RTC has some resources to help you out. Next slide, please. Supporting your celebrations. All right, so what have I been talking about? How do we make it easy? I've already mentioned those resources. We're going to be sharing publicly with you all through those email updates, but also through our website, a whole toolkit filled with shareable graphics, customizable sample language that you can essentially add your trail's name, add something about your event if you're planning an event, and share that, making, again, that part as easy as possible for you. We're also going to have those advocacy tips I mentioned, that proclamation template, the how to invite electeds, and other kind of guidance to help your events really be as successful as possible and make it as easy as possible for you. In those sample graphics, you can start sharing them on social media with the newsletter, blurbs, that sort of thing. So again, taking that so you can start getting the word out easily and quickly. We also make available promotional materials. You can see what we offered, a photo of what we offered last year. That's a yard sign. Again, that's a great way to kind of, for folks who are already using the trail, or if you can put them in place near the trails, letting them know, hey, this is coming up. This is exciting. We hope you join us here. We also offered some fun free little giveaways that you could have at your events, again, just to make them extra special. So I'll talk a little bit more about timing, but as long as you sign up for those partner updates, then you'll receive the invitation to request materials. And then all of that, right, that's supporting your event locally. Visibility too. That's a big part of what RTC is able to offer to, again, just help make these events as successful and as impactful as possible. We release every year an interactive map that essentially helps people find these events. We invite our partners to submit what they're planning, so that they're populated on the map so anybody can take a look at it and find something that's happening near them. It's a great way for you to get more visibility for what you're doing. And also it paints, as you can see, a nice picture of how this day is celebrated, and that it's everywhere. It's all these different places coming together to lift up the celebration for trails across the country. And we also use our social media channels, our email channels, our website to really, and our media to help promote Celebrate Trails Day and what you all are planning. Next slide, please. Timing. Okay, so we're in January, February right now, early 2025. So I've already mentioned this is a great time to sign up to make sure you get those partner resources along the way. It's also a great time to start planning for your celebration, start thinking about what you would like to do. Again, maybe you already have an event that's near that time. It's close to Earth Day. So again, if there's that cleanup, you can align it with Celebrate Trails Day. Start considering if you might need any of those permits, that sort of thing. Start reaching out to local decision makers, any other community partners with whom you would like to work with on Celebrate Trails Day. We're going to be announcing soon the opportunity to request materials. As I mentioned, that'll be available through the email updates. So make sure you're checking in. We'll be sharing those resources, and it's a great time to really start getting those gears moving on what you would like to do. We have already heard from some organizations who started to plan a while ago, so that's really great. We love to hear that. And then January, February is also a really great time to start getting the word out about what you're planning to do, to signal to your audience that this is a big day that's coming up and that they're invited to join you. And then March, that's when we put online that interactive map for folks to explore. We strongly recommend that if you are planning an event to submit it, let us know. Again, we'll share a form through email by March 26th, so 1 month out. We know that's when folks really start thinking ahead, what they're planning, the public, what they would like to be doing on that day. And it provides an opportunity to maximize your visibility. If you do not have everything sorted out by the 26th, that's okay. We'll continue to add it later, but we do encourage you, if you want to maximize that visibility, to submit it at least a month out. And that submission, what does that look like? So we encourage you to create some type of online listing for any event that you're planning, or any programming really that you're planning for the day. That way you have full control over the listing, and then that direct link will go onto that interactive map I shared with the organization, your organization's name, and that sort of thing in the trail. Continue to prepare for your events in March too, right? Continue to get the word out. Any of those things that come together for events, taking care of that in March. And then early April, that's when RTC is really, really heavily promoting the celebration. It's also when the materials that I mentioned before that folks have requested, that starts to arrive in advance of the celebration. And then April 26th, the big day, Celebrate Trails Day. That's when hopefully you're having an amazing day out on the trail. Your community's all there to celebrate with you. We do encourage folks to share what they're doing, share the fun on social media. Again, that kind of helps create that national moment, that visibility. So, if folks are seeing it on their platforms, then it reminds them, hey, maybe I should get outside too. It shows what they could be joining, not only on Celebrate Trails Day, but hopefully in the future too, right? By getting out and experiencing their trail. And then also following the celebration, RTC releases an impact survey. We encourage the public and our partners to fill that out. That's how we learn about those really impressive numbers, the active minutes outside, how many people are participating, what they're doing on the day. So that's when we collect all that data. And then we do share that nationally with the public, and then also our partners. So that type of even 1 day outside impact information, you have that available to you. So you can continue to make the case for why your trail is amazing and why you want to continue celebrating it all year long. Next slide, please. All right. So just a quick recap here. Celebrate Trails Day. We hope you will all be a part of it with us. Whether that's encouraging folks to get out on the day on their own or planning something for it. We hope you will visit our Celebrate Trails Day website, which right there, walestrails.org/celebrate trails. It's really the one-stop shop for all things Celebrate Trails Day, where those updates are, where you can sign up for those partner notifications by email. This webinar the recording will be there too. So we do encourage you to look there. The online map will be there. It's your home base for resources. And yeah, we really hope you be a part of it this year with us. We're super excited. And I know we have some time for questions too. And I think I've already seen a couple coming through the chat, but If you haven't already, screenshot this, write it down. We'll also send it later through our email, but just so you know, that's where you can connect with Celebrate Trails Day online and get those resources.
And I've been answering some of the questions in real time, and I want to
Oh, great.
draw attention to in the chat. Eduardo posted like kind of a common answer. There was a great question about some of the stats in the presentation, just being really helpful for making the case to different audiences. And so as Suzanne said, you'll have the presentation as a follow-up, but I also shared RTC's resource library. If it's not on your radar, it is an enormous just archive of all of the things happening in trail development across the country. So many stats, reports, economic impact analyses. There might not be one for your place, but there might be a good proxy and a good comparison. There's national figures on all of those things. And then another question came in about the wonderful photos that are in our presentations and how engaging they are and how helpful it would be for folks to have photos that they could use in their own materials. And well, we have an app for that. We have a website we use called Photo Shelter, and we have some publicly available galleries in there. And I shared the link as part of that comment as well. So encourage folks to check those out and build them into your own messaging and planning.
Yes. And, you know, if you're getting outside and Celebrate Trails Day, that's a great time to bring a camera or a smartphone and capture even more of these types of wonderful, these trail moments. So you can use them in future or for future purposes.
And just lots of enthusiasm so far, Suzanne. People saying that they love Celebrate Trails Day. They value the swag. They know that their communities value the swag as well, and they hope that there will be more. And yes, there will be. Some folks have asked if we can kind of make some of the materials more evergreen so they can use them again, and that is absolutely on our radar. And we really do hope that everyone here, if you have more questions or things that come up as you're in the planning process, that in the email is events@railstotrails.org. Is that right? Did I get that right? Events@railstotrails.org.
Events at
Yes.
railstotrails.org. Yes.
That's a great place if you've got questions or things in real time that are popping up. Okay, this is one for you, Suzanne. This is a good one. What if we need to do Celebrate Trails Day on a different day? Can it still be part of the celebration? We get this question every year.
Yes, we do get this question. I've already alluded to the snow and the rain that can happen. Yes, we do encourage as many partners as possible to plan on the day, but we understand that that's not always possible or safe if it's really, really cold out or enjoyable. So yes, as we try, if you're going to reschedule it, you know, from a rain date, whatever, that's totally fine. We will still continue to put it on the map. If you're, you know, planning ahead and you have to do it maybe on the Friday before, that's okay too. We encourage it to be as close to the day as possible. And this isn't quite the same question, but we get this a lot too. And it just reminded me, does it have to be on, you know, a rail trail? We see Trails Conservancy. Of course, the connection is there. We invite people to participate on all multi-use trails, right? Again, yes. Bringing the community to as many, or bringing as many community members as possible to participate in a way that works for them. Rail trails are multi-use trails, but yes, those are all welcome.
And we would encourage you where you can, and I'll just go back to some of what I shared about the trail networks. Trail networks are really just an incredible opportunity, and I think sometimes hard for people to fully grasp and understand. So where in your events, if you are in a system that's working to develop a trail network, where you can showcase that, or you can help people understand, like, you know, here's a gap, and like imagine what would be possible if we could close that gap. You know, trying to build support for education in there around trail networks is great too. Yeah. Here's another question about, and there's kind of two of them on the same vein around just connecting with other people and can we help? I'll just jump in and say, you know, if you are looking to connect with other folks working on trails in your area, please do reach out. We often know people, we can make relationship connections. We're glad to do that. And then the second one is about, can you become a partner? How do you become a partner? And do you have a list of past partners? That's a good one.
So yes, yes, we invite everybody to become a partner. And honestly, by simply signing up for those email updates, that's signaling to us that you want to be a partner in some way, shape, or form for Celebrate Trails Day. So by doing that, you become a partner. If you do, want to plan an event, or if you're planning an event later, you can submit that. That definitely reaffirms the partner aspect of it. And if you would like to see kind of how participation looked last year, including the partners involved, on our website right now, we have it's celebratetrailsday.org or .org slash, or excuse me, oh my goodness, railstrails.org slash
Let's
celebrate
type
trails,
it in the
all things
chat,
Celebrate
Eduardo.
Trails Day. Yes. There's an impact section, and then there's a see how we participated last or celebrated last year, and that goes to interactive map, and you can click on the different dots to see the partners there.
Yeah, that's perfect. And then similarly, there's a question about just being able to see different event highlights, self-guided events, examples of that, and how people could see that. And I would suggest similarly that map is a great resource because it goes through to the links to the things that other people hosted. But we have also been talking about, and it sounds like it would be really useful for the toolkit, maybe doing some case studies of some of the really successful events that have happened, just as inspiration to folks to just be thinking about some different ways that they might get people engaged. And then Eduardo, we could drop this in the chat too, just the idea of we have a whole section that we built out during the pandemic of ways for people to participate on trails. And so that really is your self-guided resource. There's tons of articles, ideas, resources from other organizations of things that people like to do on trails to offer you some ideas and some guidance.
Yes, and I will also highlight again our Trail Builder Toolbox that has a whole section on programming on trails. It's a great resource if you want to dig deeper into that. I will also call attention to a webinar we'll be doing with American Trails next week, and that does dig in deeper about designing engaging events on trails. So that's on the 23rd, and if you want to find out more, please join us then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's all the questions we have. And I know I am ready for it to not be 26 degrees in Washington, D.C. and to have a springtime trail celebration. So looking forward to seeing all of the ideas and opportunities that people are lifting up across the country. Looking forward to telling those stories and being a part of it with you. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We can't wait to see how you celebrate this year.